Okay, so hey guys, welcome to another Startup Stories collaboration between Negozju and the Malta startup space. We're really excited about all of the people who got in touch to come on the show with us. Today we have Ruzbeh with us, and he actually moved his company to Malta quite recently. One of the reasons being Brexit. So we're very happy to have him here today, welcoming him to be a part of the community. And we hope that when things are open up again, we'll be able to meet each other more and more in real life and continue these kind of networking sessions and networking opportunities between us. So welcome to the studio, Ruzbeh.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah, it's really good. I had a good time looking into your history and your startup's history, and you've done some great things. But to start out with, you were born in Bombay, India, and then eventually you moved to Sweden. So during that time from India to Sweden, what were the early years like of your life?
I would say it was a pretty big cultural shock to move from, India to kind of European Union. Growing up in India, it was the experience was very different. There was a lot of focus on education, which I'm really thankful to my parents about. Early on, I started off with competitive sports, which was really something that I was interested in. What I really hated in India at that point of time was the work culture. So you're expected to work 5 days a week. Sometimes you're working till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And I just wanted that to stop. And luckily, I got a job in European Union. So moving from there, actually, the story is that I got a job in Luxembourg. And when I arrived in Luxembourg, they said, hey, we don't have this job anymore for you, but we have an opening in Sweden. Would you like it? And then 3 days later, I was in Sweden, which was amazing.
Cool, Luxembourg, another small country just like Malta and the EU.
Actually, I found out that Luxembourg has more people than Malta.
It does have more people than
maybe
Malta.
50% more.
And also, if you look at expat populations, there's the top three are Malta, Luxembourg, and there's another country as well, which I think it might be Cyprus.
Okay,
so
yes.
there's those similarities too, that we have large expat populations in the country. Then eventually, after you went to Sweden, you started working there, and then you did an MBA in Oxford. Did that open up any doors for you, and maybe that a normal career path would have not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, Sweden was great. The challenge was really to fit into Sweden as an outsider, and I found that difficult. I mean, the work life was great. The quality of life in general was amazing. But what I missed was a little bit more in terms of, just the social aspects of life. And then I was lucky enough to get my admission in Oxford and then spent a year there. It was phenomenal in terms of the experience, learning more about things that I didn't know about. So I have a finance background, but I didn't know much about strategy, marketing, operations. So that was great. Meeting a lot of people who are already successful or now are successful, are CEOs of companies. So that network really helped. And the credibility, the brand of studying there was really useful, going forward for my jobs and everything else.
So you had three things which you really found valuable from that. The last one was credibility. The second one was networking, and obviously knowledge and education.
Exactly.
Cool. So then that opened up the door to your first big job, you would say?
Actually, after Oxford, I tried my own startup, and this was about 6 months, and it was about how you use your educational certificates. When I got a admission in Oxford, and I had to go back to India to pick up my transcripts and send them to Oxford, a completely insecure way of doing things. So that was something that I wanted to change. Unfortunately for us, the financial crisis happened, and so I had to look for a full-time job at that point in time.
Okay, so even before CityFalcon, you had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. And
yes.
You were always
tried. Made a lot of mistakes. I think that was the first learning experience, and in this, when I started CityFalcon, those were the things I wanted to avoid, the mistakes I'd done in the past. In the
first time you went past. That's an important one, learning from failures. It's something that we talk about at Negozju quite a bit, and we try to shine a light on them. Then you did go to Skype, and you mentioned this to me that when you joined Skype, it was already growing very quickly, and then there was an acquisition coming along. Was there any valuable takeaways from that experience?
Absolutely. I mean, I did join Nokia first, and so I can tell you all the ways that you can bring down a really successful company with, $60 billion worth in your balance sheet, but you still go, mainly because of the iPhone, of course. And then Skype happened for me. So Skype I was working in the mobile team, and what was really exciting was that we just launched the iPhone app. Obviously, the credibility was there, and it skyrocketed. What I really learned while my time at Skype was working with the product people. So before this, working in finance, everyone talked about money, about, hey, I'm going to have a vacation home in Spain, I'm going to buy this car. When I went to Skype, the experience was very different. People were focused on, hey, Apple's just announced a new app, or there's a new device that's come out. So the excitement around technology was something which was amazing for me. And that's where I learned a lot about product development and, building a brand and, operations. It was phenomenal.
So what actually excites you about entrepreneurship and even tech businesses? Is it the high potential for reward in terms of money, or is there another element to it, like you're mentioning, the love for the product and the excitement about tech?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it was like a lot of people. From what I've seen, they spend a lot of their life in corporate life, right? So 9 to 5 jobs, 5 days a week, but they're never happy. And I had the same experience because I was working for someone else. I did PowerPoint slides and Excel sheets that not many people maybe looked at. So the whole idea was, can I create something ground up? And can I back myself to be able to do that? So historically, I've been an auditor, coming from a chartered accountant background. And so I used to point out mistakes, saying, hey, you didn't do this properly, or you should have done this properly, or why are you failing? And what I felt was, hey, what if I was in the place of the management? Would I be able to do a better job? So that was all about it. I mean, if you're thinking about making money is your goal, entrepreneurship is not the way. Because there's a 90% chance you're going to fail. There's a good chance that you'll make more money, kind of a risk-adjusted way in a corporate job, working there for 10 years, than trying a startup for 6, 7, 10 years, and may or may not be successful.
I guess the upside, it could be higher if you're running your own business, but when as you mentioned, the risk reward might not be there if that's your number one goal, of course.
Exactly.
And so afterwards, after your experience at Skype, you decided you left Skype at a certain point. What was the reason for leaving? Obviously, this mindset that you want to do your own thing, but were you comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, what I felt was Skype lost its way a little bit after being a private equity-owned organization, and exit to Microsoft happened, and then it was all about Microsoft rather than Skype as a brand. And having been in a comfortable position where I had some Skype stock options, got some money out of it, so I said this is the right time for me to try something on my own, mainly because I was financially stable as well.
So what did you get into after you left?
Yeah, so I left Microsoft. I think I remember it was September 2013, and the first thing I did is I signed up for a full-time coding course. So I learned coding. It was like 12 hours a day for 3 months because I wanted to be in tech. I wanted to be in finance. And I said, okay, if I have to talk to people, not only developers, but data scientists, I need to understand what these things mean. So that's what I did. And while I was doing this, I was making money in the stock market. And I've been in the stock market for 20 years now, so I know how it works. What I realized was that in 2013, whilst you can see APIs being used a lot, machine learning, the financial experience was very old. Like I compare it to, I don't know if you remember the music cassette, right? That's the kind of experience that finance had. So while we were talking about going into space, the user experience is really bad. You had to download software. You had to do a week-long course to understand. Your user experience is very poor. And that's where I kind of built my own dashboard, showed it to people. I was running it for 6 months. My intention was to use it for myself, but then it became popular, and that today is CityFalcon.
So was this like your pet project while you were learning to code?
It started off as that, but I really started developing the platform after I finished coding. I remember it was 23rd of December 2013 when I wrote the first line of the code for the application. It didn't go out on 24th, 25th, not even on 31st. And by, I think, 15th of Jan, I had like I would say a minimum viable product ready for that.
So how important is it for tech entrepreneurs to dive into the coding, and to what extent? So you did 12 hours a day for 3 months in a schedule, a formal course. Do you think that that's enough? Is there more that needs to be done? Is 1 month enough?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky that, I grew up in India, and when I was 15, we were coding. Like it's one of the key things that you learn even in school. Generally, we have a good math background, so logic is not that difficult. And I always found it very comfortable to code. I mean, what I didn't want to do based on my previous experience was to have an idea, then wait for 3 months, find a co-founder, then find a CTO, and then 1 year of your life is lost. I said, I have an idea, I'm going to run with it. If it doesn't work, I'm going to move to something else. And I actually had 2 or 3 ideas then, so it was not the only thing I was working on.
Okay, so you were building 2 or 3 ideas at the same time.
Yes, so I mean, just to explain, I had 3 things that I was really interested in. One is finance, which ended up becoming CityFalcon. Second thing was male grooming. So I found that back in 2013, you didn't have like a special aisle for male products in a supermarket or a pharmacy. And that was changing very quickly. Men wanted moisturizers, everything else. So I thought, this is an area I want to focus on. And the third area was sports. I've always played competitive sports. But when I was testing all of these things, this thing just happened and I got good feedback and I just ran with it.
So that's something I find very interesting, because I do believe you need to focus on a project and put your 100% of your time and your effort into a project. But when it's the early stages, I think it is a good idea for entrepreneurs to kind of put their feelers out there, try a number of different things and see which one is actually going to kick off.
Agreed. I think, and again, depends on how much time you spend on it. So my focus was that I'm not going to spend 2 years doing this. So I was doing everything simultaneously. It was quickly. I wasn't doing anything else, wasn't going out, all of those things. And then something clicks for you.
That's it. I like how that goes there, because although it's important to focus on a project, I think that this part of it where you should put your feelers out and try a number of things is often missed. Obviously, you were scratching your own itch in a sense, building a dashboard that you find useful and other people will find useful too. But when you started out and you saw, okay, there's a potential here, what was your mission? What did you want to bring to market?
It was quite interesting. I wasn't really 100% sure of the product would develop. So the idea was this is going to be used by retail people in the stock market and all of that. But what I learned on this process is that it's rare that you stick to the same idea that you start with. So a year and a half into it, we got approached by a bank. And we were very lucky. And they said, hey, you guys are doing this for the retail audiences. Would you like to work with us? And I'm like, yes, you're a multi-billion-dollar bank, a listed company. And then said, okay, we want your API. So then we started developing our API. And then today our API is one of our most popular products. As you know, with the API, the benefit is that people don't have to come to cityfalcon.com, but they can integrate all that we have within their own platforms.
So other communities and of retail investors exist also. Could they plug into your API?
Absolutely. So we are open. I mean, you can use our platforms on cityfalcon.com. We have a mobile app. We have an Amazon Echo, Google Home, or you can use our API. All of these channels.
Cool. There's actually a new investment group in Malta, which is called Investment Hub. And that might be an interesting option for them to kind of give value to their community. Over the years, CityFalcon has gone through a number of steps along the way, from funding rounds to joining different accelerators. Would you like to tell us a bit about that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so just a little bit of background. I started the business. I'm a first-time entrepreneur in the eyes of the investors. I don't know many rich people. I don't know many, VCs. And typically they say in the Silicon Valley is that VCs and big investors invest in their friends. So a stranger is not going to get money. So as an entrepreneur, what I had to do was I had to run multiple businesses. One is the path that I want to take for the business, which is what the clients want and users want, and then the paths that I have to take for what investors want, right? Because that's what they want to make the quick buck. So you have to run these 2 businesses, which was kind of frustrating because then, you can't focus on one thing. You have to spread your resources quite a bit. So what we found was that by getting into accelerators, we can get this push where people start knowing about us, we get the credibility and hopefully investment. And we did get an investment. We did get few investments out of the accelerators we work with. But the whole idea was put yourself out there. In fact, I think one of my most success stories is that there is something called polar bear pitching. It happens in February, which is peak winter in Finland. And so what you need to do is they dig a hole in the Baltic Sea, frozen Baltic Sea. And then you get unlimited time, but you have to pitch from there. Okay. And you can't wear a wetsuit or anything else. So I pitched for 3 minutes.
You did that in Finland?
Yeah, I did it in Finland.
What an experience.
It was amazing. And that video, so it's an HD video, it's on YouTube, got us $500,000 in funding very soon after that. Because, we had some investors that, listen, I'm not really sure whether your idea is going to work. I don't really know you. But the fact that you jumped into, cold water, freezing water, I think I can trust you with my money to some extent.
Yeah, I've heard that they do it in very fast-moving cars as well. But this one of the...
Yes, that's the I don't know, the 30 seconds pitch or one minute pitch. But yeah, but this was like you had all the time you need. It's how long you can survive, essentially.
Yeah, well, not very long in frozen water. But
Yes,
okay.
yes, yeah.
That's really cool. Something you touched upon is that you are a solopreneur. So you started out on your own, and then built your team up from there. Often we see that people want to build a team, a co-founder, a CTO. Do you think there's advantages, disadvantages to going at it alone and going at it with a team of founders?
Absolutely. I mean, it depends on your personality, really. But what I find really amusing while I did this experience, you hear about racism in fundraising or sexism in fundraising. But what I found interesting is the whole world, the whole investment community is against anyone who starts the business by themselves.
Okay.
For a lot of reasons. Some are like, hey, what if you come under a bus? And I have a key man insurance policy, so my business gets £1 million if something happens to me. So you can solve this, but it was totally against. So we didn't get, like even in major accelerators that we wanted to apply, they said, we allow anyone, but you cannot be a sole founder. And this was even the case when I had, 10 people, 20 people, very experienced CTO, but the fact that they are not co-founders worked against me. So even today I have 38 people, and you'd be surprised. And we have very big clients, and they're like, hey, are you a sole founder? How does it matter, right, over a period of time? So that experience was really bad. So my thought on this is that as humans, we don't necessarily agree with each other. And you would see that in life with your partners, with your friends. So it's very difficult to run a business when you have multiple kind of leaders, right? So you need one clear leader. And this is where I think if it's one person with a strong team, I think has a better chance than co-founders, and then you have these arguments, and then you don't take path A or B, you try to come with a compromise. I mean, even if you look at most successful companies where they have co-founders, you will see that typically there is one good leader there, right, that runs the company, and the other co-founders might be just for name. And so a lot of people who wanted to get into accelerators, they find people just to add as co-founder, just so that they get the funding, just that they get the accelerator, which I refused to do. So that worked against us. But happy with where we are now.
So, I mean, that seems like you had a number of barriers that you kind of have to overcome. They're not obvious barriers. They're not barriers you can see and touch, but you need to push past them. You also mentioned that you have a passion for sport. Does sport play into your mindset at all, and your winning attitude?
Absolutely. I mean, if someone were to ask me, like a parent saying, what should I teach my children if I want them to be entrepreneurs? It's competitive sports, because you could be down, a lot of points. You could be completely out of the game, and you could still win. So my favorite sport is table tennis. So even in Malta, I play for clubs, and it's an 11-point game. Sometimes you're down 10 points, and you go and win that game. So it just gives you that attitude in life, saying, hey, it's not over until it's actually over. So I'm absolutely up for competitive sports.
Were there any moments in the CityFalcon story so far that were unexpected? Maybe things happened, positive things that were unexpected, and maybe even problems that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, mainly problems to start with. Let's start with the positives. Very lucky with some of the investors that I had, wherein we were running out of money. So I think there were 3 or 4 times where I had less than £5,000 in the bank, and I had to make payments worth £20,000 at the end of the month. And this is salary and supplier cost and everything. So I've struggled in those moments, but luckily found like an angel investor to support us, or sometimes I put money from my own pocket. So thankful to actually go past those barriers. In other cases, like I'm mentally very strong. There are a lot of times that actually I went back home and I cried by myself. One moment was when we did our first round. We used up that money, and then I went for a second round, and I didn't get any support, because people are like, hey, you built something, but we need more traction. And we didn't have any traction. So that was kind of scary. Another time where I cried was Brexit. So I was up till 4 a.m. And the reason I cried was because all of our money was in pounds. We're a UK-based business. We were then completely. And our cost mainly in dollars. And suddenly the pound fell 20-30%, which means my cost went up 20-30% in a day. And so those were scary moments.
Yeah, it's a headache.
Yeah, I mean, so I think there are a lot of... I think if someone were to ask me, why do startups fail? And then you will have this whole stats, people saying, hey, it was a single-man company. It was the co-founders had a fight or something. I think the biggest risk is operational. And you have to be lucky. You have to have the right timing, because without that, there are so many moments in your company's history that you could have completely failed.
On the topic of timing, what stage of is CityFalcon in right now? Like, so what's the most exciting things happening now and things going on in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite interesting, the stock markets, the way they have behaved, the crypto coming up as an asset class. So people are thinking more and more about finance. So that's really good for us in general. I mean, as a company, we are 38 people. We've grown quite a bit. So we have a really strong team, a lot of, capabilities within the team, which is great to have. So we are hoping to be cash flow positive next year, which means that we don't have to raise more investments. So we are serving a lot of big clients. And thankfully for us, we are not just focused on one region. So we have clients in UK, in European Union, in the US, and growing across the world.
Whilst you've been in Malta, has there been any good connections you've made, or has it so make obviously moving from a financial capital such as London to a finance hub in the EU such as Malta? But were there any key differences in lifestyle, networking opportunities, and general feel? I mean,
I like the way you said finance hub in European Union. I'm not sure if Frankfurt and other cities will be happy to hear that.
Yes, but I mean, I've got a little bit of national pride that I need to put out there. So,
no, but jokes aside, the phenomenal thing about Malta is Malta Enterprise. They actually got us here, and whilst a lot of countries talk about, we're going to help you with, mentors or development programs, Malta was very clear. We're going to give you cash. Right? Which means I can actually pay my people. I can pay salaries. So what we ended up doing is we actually brought our C-suite into Malta. One guy moved from the US, one guy from Ukraine. And so the key people now are in Malta for us. So it's been phenomenal for us. I mean, we're moving into an age where everything gets done over Zoom. So I don't have to be in London, pay the high rent, live in a cloudy weather, and, not only physically outside, but also because of Brexit, people struggling with a lot of things. And Malta, even though I'm not sure about the 300 days of sunshine, I think it's more like 260, 270 days, but it's still a great place to be for us.
For sure, January does get a bit frigid, but I can say that even in January, I'm out in the water surfing and enjoying the waves over there. What about, so this is something I hear from expat entrepreneurs, they're very surprised at how accessible stakeholders are on the island. And have you had any contact with stakeholders since you arrived? You mentioned Malta Enterprise. Has that been a surprise for you, or a welcome one at that?
Yeah, I think it was a pleasant surprise in the way things work. So, I mean, if I have a problem, everything gets done on WhatsApp. So, I have a contact there and I'm, struggling with something and things get resolved. So it was amazing. I couldn't have asked for more. I mean, in London, I love London. I would say London's very, like from the technology front or, organization is much more clear in the way it works, while Malta is still trying to improve with the technology and, all of that. But in London, you don't know who to talk to. Like everything is on the browser. Here you have the personal interaction, which is amazing.
Okay, so you enjoy sport. That's something is that something that you do to find peace and recover, or is there anything else that you do on your off days?
Yeah, so just as a life as an entrepreneur, I think the first year is quite emotional. So when you get a potential lead, you're like, oh my God, my idea works. Or the next day they refuse and they're like, shit, why am I doing this? Or at the end of the month, if you have struggled to pay the rent, But I think after 1 or 2 years, you become a little bit stable. So you get a big client, you're like, okay, I got a big client, it doesn't affect you so much. Or something didn't work out, it doesn't affect. I think the stresses are different. My biggest stress right now is that I have 38 people and they're like 38 children. So I have to keep managing them. So I think most of the stress comes from managing the team now. And sports help a lot for sure. I do a bit of dancing, Latin dancing. I enjoy that quite a bit. In Malta, you can dance in the open, which is amazing. Coming from India, I do a lot of yoga. So generally, all of those things kind of keep me calm and sane. And then each morning I can jump out of bed to kind of focus on another problem.
I watched your TED talk before we had the chat today. What was that? What was that like, and how did that opportunity come about for you?
So TED came through one of our investors. So one of the things we've done is we've done crowdfunding. So we've got now more than 2,500 investors in the company. And these people open doors for us. So one of them who lives in Portugal, he reached out saying, we're doing this on fintech and the future of fintech. Maybe you want to contribute. And I said, yeah, why not? So this happened in Portugal and the experience was phenomenal. Like being on stage, the rehearsal they do, it's extremely professional. Quality is important. And then I think you had like 1,000 people in the audience. I've never, been in front of these people. And then there was an overflow. Then it's going to be live broadcast and there's going to be a video. So there was a lot of pressure. And I think that the talk started off well. I wanted to keep it, lively, and people started laughing. But maybe a minute into it, like, people weren't responding. And I was struggling a little bit. Say, am I, saying something stupid, or people have just dozed off? What was happening? So that put me off, and I was almost frozen. But I had to work my way again, and I think it went well in the end.
Yeah, I think it did. It did work out pretty well. I don't really have more questions for you, but is there anything you'd like to mention?
It's one of the things that I look for. I read and I listen to is a lot of old people who are in their 80s and 90s, and when they look back at their life, they think about, okay, what are the things that I didn't do in life? And that's what I kind of look at. So if you want to run a business, the time is now. If you want to, lock yourself in with a new mortgage, keep high burn rate for yourself personally, that might be tricky. But if you think you have a good idea, if you think, that's something that you would enjoy, I would spend time doing that rather doing a corporate job. So that's the only thing I can say.
That's a good message out there, especially for the startup space. Good. It's been really great having you. Thank you for coming. To everybody, thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll tune into the next episode.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.